The Legend of Jenny Wiley is the flagship show of the Jenny Wiley Theater. It's an outdoor drama that tells the true story of a local pioneer woman who was captured by a band of Indians and her remarkable journey home. Over the years, the show itself has gone through many versions, changing and evolving with the times. The current version is a modern musical take, written by Scott Bradley and Peyton Dixon.
Basically, Jenny was a pioneer woman, late 1700s, that was living down in southwestern Virginia. She was part Cherokee Indian, part Irish, so she was kind of caught between these two clashing cultures at the time. These settlers are on the vanguard of what was then a very young country, United States, pushing west. And then also part of this culture that had been here for hundreds and thousands of years that was kind of being pushed out the door. So I've always felt that Jenny was this woman who was, part of both sides, but really accepted by neither. Well, to make a long story short, a case of mistaken identity. There was an Indian raid that came down on her cabin, and before they realized what was happening, they had murdered pretty much all of her family, except for her husband, who happened to be away at the time. And here's Jenny, they're getting ready to, these Indians are getting ready to kill her. She's pregnant. So they decide that once they realize the mistake they've made, they decide to take her into captivity so that later on they'll be able to trade her for their own freedom. One thing led to another. She ended up being in captivity with them for about a year. She did have the baby that she was carrying. The Indians ended up killing that child. And then she eventually escaped about a year later, and then made her way back to her friends and family, who had actually pushed a little bit further north into the area around where the theater is, and had created a settlement there. And just honestly, she just happened along and found these people that she knew. And with the Indians right on her trail. So there's a lot of legend that goes along with this, a lot of different versions of especially the escape. I mean, the things that we know is that all those people were killed in the cabin, that she was in captivity for a year, and she came back. What's been fun to explore over the course of working on the piece has been all the legendary things that have gone along with it. Previous versions have explored the cultural clash more. The very previous version from the script that we work with now was a very grandiose, big Broadway, typical historical drama with a lot of different characters, a lot of different storylines. I think if there's anything I can say that's very unique about our version as opposed to the ones that I've researched and seen in the past, is that it's very much focuses on Jenny and the fact that this woman, through her faith, basically, was able to overcome a tremendous amount of adversity to keep her family going and to come back to the ones that loved her and that she loved, and also through that gain a lot of more understanding for the world that surrounded her.
Almighty God, I need your guidance. I am confronted by those I do not understand.
There's a song at the end of Act 1 that was never really intended to be the Act 1 finale, but it ended up being the Act 1 finale, and it's called A Time for Prayer. It's basically a four-part monologue. Four different characters, four of the main characters in the show, each do this very powerful prayer. Pretty much universally, every time we've done the show, and the first time we did it in '98 especially, there's a moment when there's a big climax of music at the end of the piece, and there's a rest, a musical rest where there's some silence, and then there's a kind of a soft ending. And every performance of the show, just about, so you say one moment, and I guess maybe this moment has been driven home for me by the audience for 10 years. Every performance, we hit that crescendo in the music, and there's the little pause, and there's always thunderous applause there. Usually in music theater, there's a big flourish at the end of an act, and it's this big moment, and it's kind of a subdued moment after that applause. And for me, the first time that happened, summer of '98 on opening night, and totally unexpectedly. That was a pretty magical moment. I think the most important thing for me, for them to take away from it, is to take a little piece of what I got when I first came and saw a show there, which was, how great is it that this is here in Eastern Kentucky, in a town of 4,000 or 5,000 people, that this type of art and this type of work is being done on this level in this area. It's pretty remarkable. I think if one person takes that away and takes a greater appreciation not only for Jenny Wiley, but for the people of East Kentucky in general through this show, then we've done our jobs.
The legend of Jenny Wiley runs in alternating seasons. If you've never seen it, you're missing out on a fantastic tradition.